Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to all the eminent speakers, students, and audience present today for the launch of SDG Handbook for Indian Higher Education, a PACT 2030 initiative to accelerate academic engagement in progressing the SDG agenda. I am Suchismata, Research Analyst at QS iGauge, and I will be the event moderator for today. The speakers joining us through Zoom, I request you all to switch to the side-by-side speaker view in the top right corner for better viewing experience. The launch of SDG Handbook for Indian Higher Education aims to accelerate the academic engagement, efforts, partnerships, and contributions across all SDGs. Today's event would bring together various stakeholders in the country to deliberate on the urgent need for academic action towards SDGs, share the best practices, and further launch the SDG report for Indian higher education institutions to intensify the SDG results. To initiate today's event, I invite Dr. Ashwin Fernandez, convener, PACT 2030 and CEO of QS iGauge, to give the welcome address. Welcome, Dr. Ashwin Fernandez.
Thank you so much, Suchismata, for the introduction. A very good afternoon to everyone. It is definitely a nice and cozy rainy afternoon here in Bangalore, and I'm so happy and elated to welcome you all who are joining us in the comfort of your homes and offices. Welcome to PACT 2030, which stands for Pledge, Act, Change, and Transform. We are definitely here today with very distinguished well-wishers, some of whom we've already interacted with in the past, to celebrate yet another milestone in the mission of PACT 2030. As convener of this unique initiative and on behalf of the Secretariat at QS iGauge, I would like to first and foremost welcome our guest of honor for today, Shri Sabarjit Singh Sahota, who's the Disaster Risk Reduction Specialist at UNICEF India, and Shri Vijay K. Nambiar, the former Special Advisor to the United Nations Secretary General and former Chief of Staff at the United Nations. I'm so humbled with your gracious presence with us here today. Dear friends, we are interconnected to an unprecedented extent, not just in the way that our communication, our value chains, and our systems are built, but also in a way that negative externalities can no longer be contained by national borders or by firewalls on our internet systems. These are challenges that can hold everyone back and are not contained within any kind of boundary. And as the challenges are fully inclusive, so the solutions must be as well. Sustainable development cannot be achieved unilaterally. Higher education institutions have always played a pivotal role in theoretical debates and practical experimentations concerning the best route towards achieving sustainable development. The Indian higher education system is definitely growing very fast despite challenges. With the implementation of NEP 2020 and the introduction of new age tools, it is easy for a country like India to overcome many problems and bring a paradigm shift in the country's higher education sector. Connecting it to the development of sustainable individuals and therefore sustainable communities should be the most major important goal for higher education systems nationally and globally both. The issue associated with sustainable development can be seen as one of the basics of any society. Environmental education is a fundamental education to study sustainable development. Education forms an important ingredient of sustainable development and higher education an important instrument of achieving it. However, we will have to question the type of education that can bring about such a change that is needed for sustainable development and the agenda that means to teach sustainability. As academic leaders, we can envision and strategize towards a global and successful solution as centers of learning. We can educate and empower students to address the issues related to climate change, energy efficiency, as well as sustainability in a broader definition. Higher education institutions with the development of technologies in every field, can take this responsibility and thereby prove its relevance to the needs and requirements of the society. Therefore, we must play a fundamental role by placing all our resources and a spirit of independence in a service what is relevant and what is needed by humanity and society in general. Ladies and gentlemen, PACT 2030 recognizes this challenge by moving towards a strategy beyond what we have said to bring together all institutions in India to address the very root cause, taking action towards transformation. That is why PACT 2030 and the agenda which we set includes a commitment to leave no one behind. That is why we have started to work towards finding solutions that are sustainable and durable, and that recognize our interdependence with each other and with all the life on Earth. A few months ago, over 20 leading Indian universities and HEIs joined together to sign the historic Goa Declaration, pledging for better and improved action on achieving sustainable development goals in their institution and cities as part of the 3-day PACT 2030 conclave held in Goa from 10th to 12th of March 2022. It was also the first carbon neutral higher education conference in the world. The Goa Declaration was the first of its kind academic declaration towards achieving the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. As outcomes from the conclave and declaration, and in order to foster a resilient and equitable future, the Secretariat of PACT 2030, which is managed by QSI Gauge, has developed a SDG Handbook for Indian higher education, aimed to accelerate the academic engagement, efforts, and contribution across all the SDGs. The success of our collective journey to 2030 will greatly depend on how effectively institutions who are in the driving seat of implementation of the transformative national agenda by engaging their faculty, staff, students, and stakeholders in implementation efforts, and thereby bridging the gap between existing practices and SDGs. This handbook provides a comprehensive overview and light assessment of the institutional response to the SDGs at a national level. It is desirable to further deepen this assessment and repeat it regularly with partnering with each others. I look forward to the discussions today, the keynote addresses, the student presentations, and to together with all of you bring change in the world and first and foremost in India. For PACT 2030 and from QSI Gauge, I wish this afternoon a great success, and I look forward to learning from all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashwin Fernandez, for that wonderful welcome address and setting the context for today's event. It's now time for the keynote address by Mr. Sarabjit Singh Sahota. Mr. Sahota is the Disaster Risk Reduction Specialist at UNICEF India. He is also a TEDx speaker, health and wellness coach with over 25 years of progressive experience in the domains of emergency preparedness for response, disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, urban DRR planning, and safe construction. Welcome, Mr. Sahota. We look forward to your insightful thoughts.
Would you allow me to share my slides?
Sure, sir.
Good afternoon, friends. I trust you can see my slides and you can hear me as well.
Yes, Mr. Sahota, your voice is clear and we are able to see your screen.
Wonderful. It's such a pleasure to be amongst the August gathering of academic leaders, universities. As introduced, I work with UNICEF, and today I'll speak about something which I'm passionate about, youth leadership for transformative action on climate action, which is a need of our time. We live in a very momentous time where number of interlinked challenges from inequities, growing inequities to environmental collapse. It's just gripping our planet with range of long-term vulnerabilities such as compounding climate change impact, unplanned settlements all over, urban to rural, public health emergencies of global scale, extreme disaster events, and much of it is underscored by a crippling mindset that disasters and climate change is a distant reality and they're not for us. Rather, climate change and disasters are part of the socioeconomic complexity. Hence, there's a need for collective action. But the sense of urgency required for climate action is missing. Now, is it possible to take a collective action, collective stand, collectively act at scale? That's the question. And I propose we look at, and particularly this is a big opportunity for universities to take an ecosystemic, all society approach to problem solving that has collective vision, organization and institutional support, something like PACT 30, to inspire solution providers and at-risk communities to participate in solving the challenge continuously, underscore continuously, because universities have excellent opportunities to remain continuously engaged in problem solving, in certain problem solving, year on year, decade on decade, and create value from local to global level and back to local. So that's why I stress on global, because the risk, the climate risk is global, but we are acutely aware of the fact that resilience is going to be local. Climate resilience is going to be local. Hence, scale down to scale up climate action. Disaster risk is an unresolved problem of such patterns of development, which you see here. Fortunately, there's an opportunity. We are in the first quarter of UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. It's a big opportunity for youth to engage and make a difference in this way, transforming the development trajectory all over, from the mountains to the sea. So there are enough opportunities in terms of green jobs and green enterprises to blue jobs and blue enterprises and so on and so forth. How do you do it? How do you start it? Study correlations. Universities are the fertile ground to do that. Visualization of interconnectedness of sectors and domains. Build risk-informed picture of development. To enable local decision making through layering of information like this, participation of at-risk communities. Essentially, research should be interdisciplinary, cross-cultural, action research. Action learning is the answer to the complexity. Cross-cultural, collaborative, and reflective learning of many groups. An example from our own work in Pune. This is part of the 17 smart city projects of Pune, wherein students have access to unique tools and processes to promote youth leadership, quality learning, to improve sustainability of cities and communities. SDG 4, SDG 11, clearly something which overlaps with PACT 30. So we have 5 colleges, 2 institutions, and many schools which are part of the system. They're essentially trying to bring the formal governance, which is the Pune Municipal Corporation's work, together with the social governance of risk, because risk resilience is a local issue. I'll stop with some action points. Maybe you can discuss this today. Not because UGC is asking for experiential learning or PACT 30 is committed to the SDG 4 and 11, but I trust we all are. And I would suggest that universities all higher education institutions should necessarily have outreach programs. Number one. Number two, we should put focus on action research, which is part of the outreach program, and get really committed to and get involved in the issue rather than simply being informed about it or studying it just for the heck of it. I'll stop here and look forward to listening to fellow panelists. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sarabjit Singh Sahota, for sharing such valuable insights on the youth leadership. Moving on, we now have an esteemed group of speakers coming together for a panel discussion to deliberate on the topic, the role of academic leadership and capacity building in accelerating SDGs. We have Dr. Geeta Thakur, Professor and Head of Academic Staff Leadership Institute and Center for Peace and Sustainability at Manavrashna University. Dr. Thakur will be the event moderator for today's panel discussion. Other panel members are Dr. Lakshmi Priya Pinjamori, who is the Professor of Uttaranchal University. Dr. Krishna Sarkar is the Director of NSHM College of Management and Technology. Dr. Deepak Nalaswamy, who is the Director of Academic Affairs of Savita University. And Dr. Supriya Patil is the Director of IQAC of Savitribai Phule Pune University. I request all the panel members to switch on their videos so that we can all come together for this panel discussion. During the course of the panel discussion, participants may send across their questions in the YouTube live chat. And once the questions are shared, I'll be reaching out to you, Dr. Geeta Thakur, and you can pose those questions to the panelists. Over to you, Dr. Thakur.
Thank you so much, Ms. Susmita, for setting the context and introducing the panelists. So, respected Sarabjit sir, Mr. Ashwin Fernandez, Mr. Ravin Nair, and all the dignitaries and panelists all across the country. Today, we are all aware that United Nations Transforming Our World, that 2030 agenda is the most ambitious plan to tackle most pressing challenges of the world. And we all believe very strongly that universities can be catalysts in achieving these SDGs. I think in this regard, the efforts of QSIGH, especially in connecting the universities and rewarding their efforts, is highly appreciable. I also congratulate QSIGH for launch of SDG Handbook for Indian higher education. I'm sure this particular handbook would be a great resource for all the academicians and educationists, especially in their, it would be great help in their efforts of contributing towards SDGs. It also pleases me to share with you that sustainability is a way of living even at Manavrashna. Our continuous efforts of revival of Badkal Lake are appreciated by ministry. Even through Center for Peace and Sustainability, we are strengthening our efforts towards achieving these selected SDGs at our level through various verticals and especially through the collaborative efforts of society, students, and faculty. And mainly our focus is curriculum, integration, research, and collaborations. On behalf of Manavrashna Education Institutions, I extend my sincere thanks to QSIGH for this invite. QSIGH must also be applauded for the choice of this topic of the particular panel, this panel discussion. The role of academic leadership and capacity building in accelerating SDGs. I think academic leadership and potential as well as human resource with sustainable competencies. These are the backbones required for any university who are putting their efforts for achieving SDGs. So to begin with the panel discussion, I request panelists to share their reflections and their opening remarks based on this theme. So I would request Dr. Lakshmi Priya to share her opening remarks on the theme first.
Very warm afternoon to one and all here. Thank you so much, Dr. Geeta Thakur. Well, if you were to ask me something about the challenges that we have when it comes to the implementation and enforceability of sustainable development goal, which we probably would call as sustainability as per se, I think, the first thing I would like to say is something which is which means that we have to get to do what we say. We need to walk the talk. That's probably the biggest challenge we have, especially in the Indian context. We have a lot of accreditations, we have a lot of rankings, we have a lot of things happening across. We have various IQAC cells across all the universities. We are working, going overboard and trying to achieve something which is sustainable, but then the sustenance of the sustainability that we're trying to talk about is something which is challenging. So in my opinion, institutionalizing partnerships primarily with different agencies, whether it is the government agencies, or the local communities, the non-government organizations, probably is the first step towards enhancing the value proposition, as I would like to call it, for primarily the academic institutions to engage and lead the sustainable development goal efforts, because we have about 17 SDGs, and we've had quite a few of them that cannot probably be done by the institutions alone, but then it's something like we come together and get it going. The second, the reason why I'm saying it is because this perhaps enables what we call, or rather enhances and ensures the next generation is sensitized for the sustainability and the sustenance of it, with focus on participative and proactive learning. We had Professor Sarabjit here. The biggest challenge we have is active learning, participative learning, proactive learning, hands-on experience. There are a lot of things that we talk, but then when you really get the student on the field, when you get onto the field, that's when you actually start to realize what is a challenge. So in this direction, I believe that local to global is something to global. So the new adage that we all have is global, where is probably is a key to efficient and effective and also economical SDG implementation, in my opinion, because it not only boosts the morale and motivates the to anybody who's involved in it, whether it is you're talking about the indigenous groups, you're talking about rural communities, tribal communities, we're talking about academic communities, or even students for that matter. They start incentivizing from achieving whatever is a goal that is being set out. So there is some kind of a balance that's laid on, and there is a higher degree of accountability. This is what I have to say in my opening remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lakshmi Priya. You mainly concentrated and focused upon collaborative efforts at local level.
And also institutionalizing partnerships with government and communities, because that's the biggest key for academic institutions. We have outreach, or we have a lot of collaborative events which are just not end with an MOU that is getting signed, but then that becomes an active functional MOU per se. That's something which I believe should be the key. Yeah.
And we all know that universities are already have multifold responsibility. And this is whatever you explained just now. Again, it demands a lot from the side of university. So what do you think? Again, this question is for all. What do you think? What is the value proposition for universities or higher education institutions to engage their efforts towards sustainability or towards achieving SDGs?
So can I come in?
Yeah, sure.
Well, at the outset, thanks to all here on screen
And
and
just
in
one
front of the
request,
screen.
keep your time, respond
Yeah,
only in
I mean,
1 minute so that we get responses
right,
from everyone. Yeah,
right. Am I audible?
yes.
Yeah. So thanks to QS India team for positively provoking to thrive with the HI, a higher education value proposition with the SDGs. Now, 53 million tons of e-waste per year. That is 7 kg per person. That too, when almost half of the population is merely in digital inclusion. Besides the post-COVID upsurge in the world, the growth of EdTech is extending and, in terms of digital inclusion. And also, there is an excessive effort with planned obsolescence, which is a matter of concern. Therefore, it is a contemporary problem proposition for the HEIs to creatively and collaboratively, work for impactful solutions and their way of holding the SDGs. The deliverables, especially the SDG 4, which is on quality education, SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, and SDG 12, responsible consumption. And as Madam Lakshmi rightly pointed out, SDG 17 is very, very important for HEIs, which is partnerships for the goals. I look forward to the discourse and maybe I can come back again and put my views. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sarkar. I think when we talk about SDGs achievement, the university, especially Times ranking. So here the 11 SDGs are given the target, and I think we can keep it in mind those 11 SDGs when at the level of university when we are talking about achieving SDGs. Thank you so much. Anyone else would like to add upon? Because I think Krishnendu Sarkar, he more talked about e-waste management. So that is, you can say, the USP of his university. What about others? Because we have good panelists from all across the country.
I'd like to come in.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, one and all. Sarabjit sir, Ashwin sir, and the entire QS team. I'm very grateful that you have included me in this esteemed panel. And thanks to also Dr. Geeta for, moderating this very well. So I represent Savitribai Phule Pune University. And we are a state public university, a multidisciplinary university, which I would actually I'm very happy to state here that we were recently ranked between the bracket of 541 to 550 in the QS World University Rankings. So we are, I guess, doing something right. Now, our university, the basic mission of our university includes conservation, creation, advancement, and dissemination of knowledge. We also believe in providing value as well as quality-based education to our students. And how this helps, this enables our social, economic, and regional empowerment. And that is one aspect that we looked at. We have been inclusive being a state university. And at the same time, what we have, our alumni, they are thought and action leaders, and you find them across the globe. Now, this basically sums up our contribution towards a sustainable development. Now, Savitribai Phule Pune University is an affiliating university. So our strength lies in the 982 colleges that are associated with the university, which ends up being more than 7 lakh students. And youth is the power. So we have an outreach, we have a reach to 7 lakh students every time. And this is where our sustainable development gets incorporated. Because we believe that the small things that you do, small drops of water make an ocean. So the small things we do in our activities for the society, for the community around us, which spreads into 3 districts and beyond through these 7 lakh plus students, actually creates a change in the direction of sustainability as we are looking at. And that's why we believe, our university believes that a higher educational institute like ours and all of them all across the nation are actually an invaluable resource for sustainability development. That's all I'd like to state at this point. Thank you. Ma'am, you need to unmute.
Dr. Thakur, you are on mute.
Thank you, Dr. Supriya. The power of youth is the common wealth for entire world. And I think Savitribai Phule University utilizing it very well for the achieving of SDGs. Thank you so much. Now, as we know, ours is the country with highest youth population. And even in today's date, I mean, in the history, even the world's largest generation of youth in the history is in today's date, that is 10 to 24 year, that age group. Now, when we talk about it, I think the major responsibility lies with us as university, because ultimately these are the people, those who are going to come in the university in future, and they are future citizens who will be tackling the problem of SDGs. So what do you think? I mean, do you think this generation have those sustainability competencies currently? So I just would like to know your opinion, and if no, then how universities are going to inculcate these sustainability competencies and required skills among students. Yes, Dr. Deepak, you can begin. You can share your opinion.
And thank you for inviting me to this panel discussion. It is really a privilege and an honor to be a part of the forward-thinking discussion where we are trying to look forward, best can be done for the future of the nation. So regarding sustainability, like the certain goals, I'm from Savitri University, and for those who are not aware, we are one of the top 30 universities ranked by NIRF, Government of India, and we are an NAC A++ institution, and we are also the highest ranked, highest QS ranked institution by subject. We secured the 18th rank at the global level for the subject of dentistry. And so that is our basic background. So regarding sustainability towards the next generation, the main areas where the university we have currently focused on is we are looking for good health, where we are more of a health science based university, but primarily we're looking at health regarding chronic diseases like diabetes and hypertension, which we are based in Chennai, and Chennai is known for higher incidence of diabetes and hypertension. And so we are trying to make sure that all the students of all the streams, whether they are in technical, law, or any other stream, they do learn about the early signs of diabetes, how to identify relatives with these diseases, and how to give them preliminary care, and also how to make them something like a peripheral healthcare provider. So that is the level of the same one thing we try to incorporate, and it's quite successful. One other area is that the Government of India has prescribed all universities to adopt a family, a village, to help in good health. And I think that Sevagram model is also very successful. Almost all universities have been doing it. And that is also one way that universities significantly contribute to the society in bringing in good health and also care and equality. It addresses so many other issues, social issues also, when you are given as a caretaker of a family who is from a backward community or a society who needs help. The next area where, I think most universities primarily focus on, and we also are doing a lot of work on, is the area of skill development and skill development, employability, and inequality, equalization. These are the areas we are trying to focus. So we also try to produce a lot of elective courses across multiple streams. Like say, for example, even an allied health student can do a little bit of programming so that they get some programming skills so that they can later survive. Supposing there's a bigger job market for, I don't know, programmers and computer science specialists, they should be able to fill in the gap. So at least do some level of work which can improve their skill levels and also improve their social status also. So
Yes,
that is the
thank
second
you.
area we are working on. I'll just finish the last statement. The final area is two global issues. One is climate change and the pandemic. Again, pandemic preparedness and being able to be pandemic mitigation training. That has also been extensively given to all the students of all the streams, from architecture to engineering to allied health to medicine, all of the students put together. And together, they were also able to treat over 5,000 COVID patients, making us the second largest COVID hospital in Tamil Nadu after CMC Vellore. And so that kind of community efforts towards fixing the pandemic, then also during droughts, how the students are motivated to form clubs and they donate and contribute to society. These are all the areas where we have been doing, and I think many universities are also doing. And I think this is how a university would also contribute to changing the mindset of the future. And we are very happy to announce that not just in our college, but most places, the young youth is very much concerned about climate change and sustainability and all those goals. So that is why it has also become the it thing. It is kind of the cool thing for everyone to talk about. So in those
Yes.
contexts, I definitely believe that we are on the right track and that universities are already making a significant impact on the young generation and their mindset, and also will continue to do so. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Deepak, I think through students, you are trying to contribute to some important SDG goals, mainly as yours is the University of Medical and Medical Technologies. So mainly in terms of the mental health and well-being and even physical well-being. Thank you so much. And here, when students are part of these projects, part of these activities, I think their mindset change. And as you rightly said, already our new generation, young generation, they're concerned about this environmental, not only environmental concern, but all these pressing problems. I would again would ask this question to Dr. Lakshmi Priya. Basically, when we talk about every university, every higher education institutions, they are involved in some or other activities and programs and projects, right? And as Dr. Sarabjit ji said, action research is important. I think more than that, even action along with the action research, participatory research is also very important, where we involve students and society, and then we undertake the research. And as Sir rightly said, resilience is local. But again, this future generation, they are going to tackle this problem, and there are certain skills, knowledge, certain attitude, and especially certain competencies which are important to develop among these youth, so that they would be capable to take it forward in future. So I'm asking about these competencies, how we are going to inculcate among students, again, at our university level or higher education institutional level.
Thank you for that, Dr. Geeta. I must state that I belong to Uttaranchal University and I'm associated with them. As you all know, it's the first university in Uttarakhand to have received a NAC A+ accreditation recently. And we are a very young university. We are a private university. But if I were to answer your question directly, students are still are like wax. So you need to mold them, and that requires two main things. One is the management that is extremely proactive. And at Uttaranchal University, our Chancellor, Honorable Chancellor Jitendra Joshi ji, is one person who says students is everything for us. So that's something which is very important for the management to understand, especially from a private sector university. When I'm saying private university, you understand what I'm saying, where you do not compromise on enhancing the skill set of the students, making them what they intend to be. So we have different units. We have an extensive research cell that is developing because, we have also Professor Dharam, who is now, at the helm of affairs when it comes to research and development as a vice chancellor, along with our dean and director at the research. Where I'm very proud to state that this perhaps is one of the very few universities which does not step back when it comes to funding even student projects. So when I'm saying student projects, I'm not talking about only those which are technologically advanced. I'm also talking about grassroots level projects. Like we have some of the projects done by teachers and students. They're funded directly by the university. The management understands very well the grassroots level issues and challenges. So it's not expected of you to kind of come up and say, yeah, this is best I could do, but they do understand where we have issues. Now, the second thing, as I said, is when you get into participative learning and action learning, you need to also get the students to kind of get their hands dirty. They need to get them onto the ground level. And that's something we do at Uttaranchal University very proactively. Again, I must say our Chancellor Sir has adopted about 5 to 7 villages around Dehradun. This university is in Dehradun. So as you know, so we've not only tried to kind of enhance the standard of living there, alleviate their livelihoods, because there have been various jobs that are being created for them. We have a division which kind of trains even the people from these villages in and around Dehradun to kind of come and develop their skills. And so not only the students from the universities, but they get an opportunity to interact with students and others from outside the university. That's one aspect that we have. The second thing is, like, we have various drives, which are funded, sponsored by the university, and where we go and create what is called awareness for health, where we have various health camps, legal aid camps, and we also have various camps like, to enhance the what we call the environmental sustainability, try to understand what kind of practices exist there. So one more thing, I'm again very proud, probably we are one of the universities who's working towards trying to protect the indigenous knowledge that exists in these areas, because as a result of which we are trying to sensitize them about saying that if you're having a traditional knowledge, a traditional indigenous knowledge, you do have an option to incentivize it. So there is, and the students get to understand, when students understand it and they go back to their homes, go back to their villages, go back to their tribal communities, or even interact with their friends, there's a certain kind of sensitization, there's a certain kind of information that kind of trickles down, and people start understanding that this is not a difficult goal to achieve. So this is how we're doing it. We do it very paced out, very slow, because we are very young with a lot of challenges we have. But then I think what is also very important is that we have functionality for all that we kind of try to collaborate with. So this is something which is very focused.
Very, very appreciable, I think. Very, very appreciable, because yes, I think Indian way of attaining SDGs, that is another aspect wherein actually university must look in. Now, when we discussed, all the panelists, they shared their viewpoints, and they shared their especially best practices which are going on in their universities. And we all know, depending upon our circumstances, depending upon the geographical locations and all, we are doing our level best to achieve or to target few SDGs. Now let's come back to curriculum. As there are different universities, Monash University, MIT, Stanford's and all, they are integrating these SDGs into their curriculum. I just want to know, to what extent we are doing, are we integrating SDGs into our curriculum? To what extent? And how we can enhance this? So only 1 minute for each. You can share your views. You can share your own experience as well as.
1 minute is too tough because earlier I tried to put it in 1 minute. But let me just expand to what exactly my trigger was, and I will keep myself as short as possible. With this launching of Sustainable Development Goals in 2015, now the HEIs all over the world have adopted new policy and curated programs, right, to making global framework local. So that is a very important thing, that how we can be local in the true sense of the term. And a Google search, if we do, gives us a lot of evidences of students, institutions, universities across disciplines, leading innovative efforts to build sustainable communities. Now, for instance, there has been remarkable developments by HEIs in the missions related to safe and clean water and energy, food, green businesses, and climate action. And these are solid evidences, right? But then we have more miles to go. And obviously, there are challenges as well. Now, we have to create more conducive kind of an ecosystems, wherein there is a motivation for the HEIs to have this performance-based indicators. And those are measured and those are kind of mandated as well. Now, in certain geographies, if I see, there are great models to emulate and to adopt. Like, for example, Sweden and its neighboring Scandinavian nations, Western Europe, including Ireland, then Canada, and also Asia Pacific. Those countries, they have some great models. And obviously, those are coming from the universities and R&D institutions out there. Now, not to mention about India, yes, the Niti Aayog, as we all know, have been doing pioneering work in terms of SDG goals and also the index statewise, identifying the gaps. And so there have been a lot of initiatives. It may sound very simple, but there have been remarkable outcomes. Like if I say Swachh India, and so that particular thing, ODF thing, was a huge success in India, and it's still going on, which is good. And in institutions, we have Unnat Bharat Abhijan, led by IIT Delhi and Ministry of RD. And then Startup India is something which is giving us a lot of opportunities to participate in green businesses. And also this Mahatma Gandhi Council for Rural Education, and then Make in India thing, which is great. Now, HEI's value proposition should be measured through a lot of instruments which Ministry of Education has given to us, like, for example, Institute's Innovation Cell. Then you have NAC, which is accreditation, and like QS. So with criteria which they motivate HEIs to come up with some indicators. And also there is a IRA, which has to be taken very seriously in the country, which really promotes innovation. And of course, we require a kind of an regulatory, incentive so that the HEIs are motivated to put it into those kind of an curriculum. But I'm sure we are into that road. So there are certain things like, we have mandated environmental studies and universal value system in our curriculums. Those are praiseworthy things. Now, there is a challenge which I would want to take this opportunity to put this across. Now, it is like we, the professional higher education institutions, the main objective of our group, learner group, is employability, right? So, we have this kind of thing that no student should be left out in placements. So thereby, inadvertently, we are supporting markets, which thrives on linear economy, which is basically make, use, dispose, right? And because it generates rapid employment and rapid opportunities. So that is something which probably we cannot say that, okay, we are not into this kind of a linear economy model. But then we want to step in slowly but surely into the circular economy kind of a model, wherein we are able to experiment and employ those re-options, right? And I'm sure there are many HEIs who have embraced circular vision in the realm of SDGs, and ranking and accreditation institutions in India and world have included criteria, of measuring SDG key performance indicators. So we can be very hopeful that as a greater alliance, HEIs, the UN, the World Economic Forum, NGOs, and institutions like QS, and as an alliance, so we can bring about this effective change at the local levels, thereby gainfully and meaningfully create these new opportunities, which I stress because we have to create new opportunities beyond the linear model, right, in the circular space for our students and the scholars to thrive. That's all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarkar. I think you rightly said there is a need of many ranking institutions so that there would be compulsion on higher education institutions to integrate into curriculum and then bring into the system. I think QS iGauge would definitely note this, and in future, in their ranking, we would get more focus, more emphasis on these aspects. So when we talk about sustainability, I think first of all, the institutions has to be sustainable themselves so that we can be a role model. So if I ask you, how do you define sustainable university or sustainable institutions? So we would start with Dr. Supriya. Please answer in 1 minute. What is your viewpoint, or not viewpoint, but your one-liner about sustainable institution?
Well, I would then like to quote one of the famous authors in management, Peter Drucker, and he says, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And therefore, that's what we believe. If the future belongs to the next generation, we have to ensure, we have to take measures, strategies to ensure that the next generation is benefited. And therefore, when we teach management, since I'm a professor in management, what we teach, instead of 4 P's that we talk of marketing, we tell them the 4 P's have to be redefined. Your 4 P's are now planet, the people, where we live on, the sustenance of this planet. We talk about the people who are living in the planet, because after all, if you don't have people, nothing means much. Then the people need to be prosperous. Prosperity for every single human being that exists on here. And then to bring all this, we need a plan. And the best laid plans, the best made plans are disrupted, as we saw in COVID. Everything went for a toss. Whatever plans we had, we thought we'd do, everything went for a toss. But then it's a silver lining that I looked at. That's the attitude our university has. Let us look at it positively. And what did we do? Immediately, within a month of the lockdown, we shifted our education from an offline to online. Okay, I'll stop here. We'll continue the discussion later. Thank you.
So one-liner from Dr. Deepak, and then I would come to you with the next question immediately. Dr. Deepak. Okay, we'll continue with Dr. Lakshmi Priya. One-liner. What is your opinion? What is your?
Can I just
please? Yes.
Okay. So, what do you want me to talk about? Sorry.
First of all, one-liner about sustainable institution. What do you think? What is sustainable institution?
Sustainable institution is one which is, I think, it actively a university which actively forms a part of the society in driving its local community towards sustenance, inculcating the values of sustainability in their students, and also doing enormous amount of research towards the next generation of technologies that can help in sustainability. Either it is in manpower, healthcare, or in technological advancements.
Very well summarized in very short sentence. Thank you so much. So when we were talking about ranking and we were talking about evaluating this the behavior and the contribution of universities, would you suggest some indicators where we can measure the sustainability leadership? So this question is for Dr. Deepak.
I think major indicators, some things what we can look for is, we can look at, currently we have been trying to go fully digital, and based on an independent assessment, we had saved over 6 million liters of gasoline. And these kinds of metrics, the overall expenditure on electricity, the overall revenue generated through consultancies on sustainability, and other kinds of parameters can be of significant indicators towards a contribution of an institution towards a sustainable goal. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much. And Dr. Lakshmi Priya, would you like to add on something to it?
Add on something.
Can we talk about sustainability leadership?
Yeah, I guess sustainability leadership starts with the leadership that understands the requirement to have an action plan in place. Secondly, strategize the action plan. Thirdly, go ahead with the feasibility of operation before we embark on showing your footprints in the society at large. I do agree with Dr. Deepak on this, where you have to let the society know what's your contribution towards sustainability, be it the health sector, be it whatever it could be any of the sustainable goals. Now, to my knowledge, I think another major area when it talks about sustainable leadership is a leadership which understands the grassroots levels. That becomes a challenge. Probably I keep emphasizing on grassroots levels because I'm from Dehradun, and here it's very pertinent, important, and also very, let's say, the prerequisite, I would say, to let the student understand why he needs to do what he's expected to do. And so if you start acting in that direction, the students also follow. So I think walking the talk right from the top level management, and the biggest leadership would be when your footprints are there in the society to see. Like, that's what Uttaranchal University does look forward to, does always do. If you're saying we're doing something, it's because we have an example. So in this direction, we do have some leaders out there, some deans out there. To name Professor Bahuguna from the Law College, is well known to everybody from the legal arena. I must tell you, sir has started student-driven societies. So all these clubs, there's not clubs, these are societies and centers, whether it is a legal aid center, whether it is a youth parliamentary society, it is a environmental society. He has said, you come up with an idea, you want something to do with alternate dispute resolution, let's come there. If you want more placements, let the student drive the placement cell in terms of, we have a competitive cell, but the student is always given a mentor, a guide, you can give any name, but then there is a hands-on participation in each activity, because educational institutions, especially the higher educational institutions, are thriving or are a reflection of our students. It's not us, but it is our students who carry so that's one of the major things that I believe, that you need to leave your footprints which lasting footprints, meaning sustainable footprints is what I look at. Yes,
very well said. I think that is what is important. We need to, in fact, motivate our students and create the group not only, and societies not only at one university level, because I think at each university level we are struggling separately. We really require a platform like QS where they are putting their efforts to bring all the universities and all the institutions all together to bring carry forward those all those efforts in a very larger scale, because I think collectively we need to put the efforts. Thank you so much. Now, last question for each one of you, but please maintain the time. What do you think? What should be the new way to approach SDGs if we have to achieve it? As you know, the target is 2030 and it's 2022 now. And we all are aware about our Times higher education ranking. We are all aware about our global index as well. So globally, the situation of our country is not, unfortunately, not so good. So definitely universities are going to play an important role here. So we have very few years left. Now the question is, what should be the new way to approach this, to achieve this?
So can I
half a minute from everyone?
Okay, half a minute. So focus on modular design. That is what HEIs can do, right? And also enhance this scope of open source. kind of a development and access.
Yes.
Those are the two things which education institutions should do in the space of responsible consumption.
Very well said, Dr. Sarkar. I think open educational resource movement has to be strengthened at
modular design.
Yes. Dr. Supriya?
Yes. My 2 points. First is, right now we are in a phase where education is undergoing complete transformation thanks to the new national education policy that we are working in. And therefore, each one of us has an ample opportunity to do two things. One, change our curriculum such that we incorporate every goal that we need, everything, every parameter that we need to achieve these goals into our curriculum itself. And the second thing that I would insist upon is that every institutions needs to revisit their strategies, the institutional strategies, the vision, mission that we have. Because unless we make those radical changes at the top, you cannot expect things to move at the bottom. If I'm allowed another 10 seconds, I'd also like to mention that we have more than 1,000 universities in India. Some are small, some are large. But the outreach is huge. If we take small steps in the right direction, 2030 is definitely achievable. It has to be a combined effort. It has to be an inclusive effort, and we can't work alone.
Thank you, Dr. Supriya. Dr. Lakshmi Priya, please.
Okay, for my 1 minute or half a minute, as you said, I think the first thing we should look at as higher educational institutions is probably an interdisciplinary and technology-based education where you have a lot of artificial intelligence and also machine learning that kind of gets into various areas, whether it is linguistics or law or management. We need to kind of go for interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary education. Second, sustainable agricultural initiatives taken by the higher educational institutions, because that is going to solve probably the problems we have in India, which kind of revolve around poverty and hunger. And I think sustainable agricultural initiatives, if each of these universities, as Dr. Patil has said, can contribute, I think we will be able to achieve the 2030.
Yes,
and if you permit me just one more suggestion I have, which I am trying to implement at my university through the ITAC cell there, is a policy management system, which actually drives the quality management in the higher educational institutions. I think these are the three initiatives that should be taken very seriously for us to be able to achieve the SDG, the 2030. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Deepak, please.
Good evening. In concluding remarks, I'd like to say that, many of the things that are mentioned in the SDGs are being done in some part or the other. Even previously, it was being done. So what we would propose is to have a foundation course for all entering graduates about an SDG. What is an SDG? Why is it important? What has the WHO said? What are other universities doing towards it? What are governments doing towards it? What is that we do as a society towards it? With those basic awareness created across all students at a foundation level, across all universities, can make the common term SDG as a common term across all the students. And that itself will create more awareness and work will be.
Very well said, Dr. Deepak. And I think this is very important. First of all, awareness, education and training. At Manorishna, we have developed, in fact, a course on peace and sustainability, a basic course, and we are offering to other universities as well, just to add on. With the paucity of time, I just would like to conclude. I think at global level also, critical thinking and innovation, these are the drivers, is in case of higher education institutions. So I think we need to, at university level, we need to inculcate this critical thinking and innovative mindset among the students. And then rest of the points, I think you all made, suggested very, very important and very solid points from your own experiences, from your best practices. So here I would take opportunity to thank QSIGH for this wonderful opportunity to share our views and experiences with the participants. I think, Susmita, is there any questions from participants so that we can take one or two and then wind up?
Yeah, Dr. Thakur, we have several questions coming up from the audience.
Okay.
So due to shortfall of time, yeah, I'll just pose the question to all the panel members. So the first question is from the audience. It goes on, how can graduate research projects which allow for diverse experiential learning lead to SDG transformative action?
Okay, shall I answer this question?
Sure, Dr. Thakur.
I think project-based learning, it's going on in many universities. So we need to change our pedagogies as well. When we talk about SDGs, integrated education, or integrating SDG in the curriculum and research as well, I think transdisciplinary, we should go for transdisciplinary research, and we should go for project-based learning approach in the universities. And as ma'am rightly said, multidisciplinary approach and interdisciplinary approach. So students should not think, and even faculty should come out of that watertight compartments of different departments and faculties. I think now you are applying your knowledge for solving your local problems. And when you are applying your knowledge for solving your local problems, it will not be single disciplinary problem. So that mindset and that attitude has to be developed. I hope if anybody would like to add something.
I just like to add to that, we should start inculcating not a solution to a problem, but then having a solution-based approach to a problem. See, most of the time what happens is, if I'm getting a fund, like for example, I'm given about $1 lakh to do a particular implementation. That's what we can do for a student, maximum 10,000 to 50,000 to 1 lakh. This is the investment that can be made for a student. Now, you guys are doing your research, going ahead with it. You're an undergrad. We don't have high expectations from you because, there are certain ingrained, inbuilt incompetencies, considering the age factor and various other factors, because you're young. So the expectation is also not very high. We don't expect you to come up with something which is patentable and can be granted a patent, and we can go for technology licensing after that. That's not an expectation. It's just that we want you to get to the grassroots level, get there, get a hands-on feel, understand that there are challenges which are practically what you have to encounter when you go on the field, whether you're doing a biotechnology project or an anthropology project or a legal science project. It doesn't matter. If you know, so Shushmita, I'm a biotechnologist who's teaching law right now. Now, why am I doing it? Because unless the technology that you're trying to develop in your labs has no value to the people, to the society at large, and has a legal bearing to it, it doesn't make any sense. So this is a sensitivity that we would like the younger generation to understand, because we've burnt our fingers quite a bit. I'm sure all
Lakshmi, I would just advise you to.
Yeah, so all of us have burnt our fingers. And so we want you to learn from our experiences, but we want you also to kind of understand the challenges. That is all is expected when we have an undergraduate research project. This is not something which is
problem-based and project-based learning. Learning approaches.
That is an approach, like ma'am said, it's more of a pedagogy which has to be inculcated, where we start understanding that to implement something, you need to know.
Can we go for next question, please?
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Lakshmi.
Yeah,
we would
next
actually could wait for a longer period of time, but right now we are in a hurry to take up the next question, which is, would inter-institutional model United Nations or SDG Club address SDGs at a pace that is needed today? Should institutions move from the within university clubs to a network inter-university clubs to mobilize action from local to global level?
In fact, the participants himself has given the solution. Ecoversities we are talking about, and that is what we are talking about. Instead of struggling at our own university level and putting our efforts, we can combine the efforts, and I think we can achieve much more.
I can just come for 30 seconds here. Now, see, all those partnerships, alliances, these are beautiful words. But let me tell you from the experience, unless and until you prove your worth, who is going to partner with you? So what we have done consciously is we have created a shelf of work. We call it shelf of projects. Now, these are very, very important projects wherein faculty and students group, they are mandated to work and be part of that project-based learning and come up with some outcomes which the students can share. They can share their experience, even if it is a failure. Let them talk it big in terms of failure, getting more and making those failures viral than the successes. You know, you have to make yourself visible first. Hey, I am credible. And talking about the SDGs competencies, that, okay, partially I am fulfilling those. Then only I can extend my hand for a partner. And in the very beginning, in my first minute, I have talked about the importance of an alliance. And then this alliance stories you can unfold. But first, prepare yourself, do yourself and share. Make yourself visible.
Thank you, sir, Dr. Sarkar. Sushmita, you can.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Thakur, for conducting such an wonderful panel discussion. And thanks to all our panelists for engaging the audience and sharing the valuable insights with us. I'm sure this discussion has given some reflections on the kind of roles which can be taken up by the institution. And it's very impressive to learn how each institution are doing their own part in contributing to the society.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have the student presentation on an SDG innovation named Kanyathon, an experiential program for social impact by the students of Jagdish Seth School of Management. I would like to invite Soumya Singh, Aditya Singh, Sanjay Sangle, and Drishti Sharma to present their project. Please stick to the allotted timeline and complete your presentation in the next 10 minutes. All the best.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I'll be sharing my screen.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm Drishti Sharma, student of Jagdish Seth School of Management, Bangalore. Along with my batchmate, Aditya Sangle and Soumya Singh, are here to present about Kanyathon, an innovative experiential program that instills social responsibility in our students and driving us to make social impact.
Drishti, presentation is.
1 second, I think there is some issue with the presentation. I think it's visible now.
Yes.
Okay, so we are here to present about Kanyathon, which is an innovative experiential program that instills social responsibility in our students and driving us to make social impact. Kanyathon is an intervention of integrated activities with the purpose of creating sustainable impact on SDG 1 to SDG 5. Kanyathon is extremely close to JAXOM's heart and it's backed very strongly by our institution. But what drives us all to create this success every year? Before that, let's take a look at some hard facts. The women in India, a developing country that constitutes of 48% of women, which does sounds like a very good sex ratio, but there exists the issue of social inequality. The struggle of girl child begins even before the day she is conceived. She is lucky if she is allowed to be born. In fact, her education is also not given much importance. Here is a section of society that, given the right support, can transform their families, their societies, and transform India. Therefore, JAXOM chose to back this cause, and our endeavor is to impact their lives every year in the areas of health, education, and nutrition. Why has JAXOM been successful with Kanyathon? Let's have a look at our mission. Instilling social responsibility is an integral part to make us student holistic. JAXOM has many social active initiatives through the year, but there are 3 flagship programs, which are also the pillars on which Kanyathon stands. Let me introduce you to them. Number 1 being the social immersion program, where we, along with NGOs, experience how marginalized communities live in rural areas through a 10-day immersion. And we design solutions through a techno-economic viability study. Second being, of course, the Kanyathon program, a full circle of experiential integrated activities that generates funds and deployment of funds for enhancing the life of the girl child. And last being the Kanyathon Kolar program, where we run projects in collaboration with CRY, our partner NGO, under Unnat Bharat Abhigyan scheme, where we adopted 5 villages in Kolar, which is a 2-hour away from Bangalore, an area of high need, which needs upliftment. Now moving on to the birth of Kanyathon. It started in the year 2011 as an annual charity run organized by the students of Jackson Institute. The student team had pledged to use every penny acquired from the charity run for the well-being of women and children. On an average, in each edition, we have managed to generate a revenue of 40 lakhs. In fact, we are very proud to say that we have donated 48 lakhs to date to improve the lives of many girl children in education, nutrition, safety, and hygiene, and thereby impacted the SDGs. The mission of Kanyathon is to empower women and girls. But what has been the ingredient of success, our success story? Innovation, efficient, all-encompassing, sustainable. Let us look at the Kanyathon success story closely.
11 editions and still going on strong. The run grew from mere 400 to 10,000 registration. The revenue grew from almost zero in 2011 to 41 lakhs in 2022. So how did this happen? Kanyathon is all about being adaptive to technology, trends, and even during the pandemic. We were determined to stay true to our cause. We added virtual run, a cyclothon, and e-gaming competition, which brought in participants pan-India as well as across the globe. Like Oracle from Australia also supported us. The first big change to make Kanyathon sustainable, a series of integrated goal-oriented activity operation, is a full circle for holistic development, as you can see. No, the previous slide, please. Yeah. The circle begins with the Kanyathon company, a student leader team that derives Kanyathon. It includes all our students divided into business-like departments. Next is the effective execution program course, where the students generate effective solutions through institutional committees, like cycling and e-gaming events were brainchild of sports committee at Jackson. We have negotiation skill course also. It's a graded course whose goal is to create a short corpus-based revenue through tickets sold by our students. And lastly, student help in distributing funds through the social immersion program. The students work with CRY, our NGO partner, who manage these projects to create impact. The innovative engagement activities like e-gaming with prizes, health session by experts on the wellness, fitness on various digital platforms, and many more has helped us to build relationships across India and as well as the world. Next slide, please. So Kanyathon company is stimulated business venture run by students consisting of various verticals. They organize and execute all the activities in the event. It's run by student CEO, CXOs, and of departments, who in turn have student volunteers to execute and varied activities. Like I was the Chief Digital Marketing Officer, Dishti was Chief HR Officer, and Aditya was Chief Marketing Officer. We learned few managerial skills like meticulous planning and organizing, working with deadlines and targets, coordinated teamwork, solving problems, solving challenges collectively along the way. Most importantly, the company enabled a legacy system where one batch would hand over to another batch through a formal HR recruitment system. Next slide, please. Here it is a feather in a cap. In 2021, Kanyathon got recognized globally by AACSB. We were distinguished on the parameters like cultivating a position at the intersection of academia and practice. Second, connecting through other disciplines. And third, driving innovation in a higher education. Next slide.
It has always been our endeavor to touch the lives of the people. The event has always been a means to an end, not an end in itself. And the year 2018 was a watershed moment when we launched the Kanyathon company. As you can see, there was a significant increase in the participants because our efforts were doubled. It was organized, it was consistent, our manpower and resources were doubled, which obviously resulted in more participants. We also have become very efficient with managing our expenses. Therefore, year on year, we are generating a sizable surplus. Looking at the donation data, we managed to donate 5 lakh in 2018, 5 lakh in 2019, 12 lakhs in 2020, 18 lakhs in 2021, and 8 lakh this year with a plan to donate more. We can proudly say that in the last 5 years, we have generated more than 1.5 crores in total revenue. Not just Kanyathon stood the test during COVID, the women and the young girls, especially the marginalized community in India, stood the test too. This was the period of COVID in which Kola was suffering the greatest, and the conditions were dreadful. As previously stated, our NGO partner, Child Rights and You, helped Kolar cope with this trying times. We have a dedicated team whose sole responsibility is to look after the rights and the needs of the girl and the women in the Kola villages. The team works through the model of advocacy. Through regular follow-ups with government bodies in Kola, the NGO team ensures the women and the girls get what is due to them. As seen in this slide, we launched COVID awareness programs and vaccination camps to guarantee that immunizations were administered. We recently held health camps in 2 villages, providing a full health checkup and free medicines to over 400 children. Aside from that, 21 malnutrition cases were detected and treated between 2020 and 21. The identified youngsters were hospitalized at the NRC before and received extra rations from the Anganwadi. Even during the pandemic, our team got the Anganwadis to distribute dry rations to children in place of the midday meal. JAXAM also donated an amount of 4 lakhs to migrant women workers who had lost their job. Only one part of a tangible impact that Kanyathon has created. There is more. Our Kanyathon Shiksha Kendra.
Sorry to interrupt you, Aditya. We just have next 1 more minute to wrap up.
Okay, ma'am. So our Kanyathon Shiksha Kendra is a unique venture from an educational institute. We feel that if we given the correct resources support, this young girl has a potential to change the world, and we want to provide with her necessary skills that will help transform her and her family. So the influence of SDGs has been extremely visible. As you can see on the screen, we have had an influence on all 5 SDGs. The impact of SDG began way back in 2018 when our funds were deployed across the country. But now we have decided to only focus on Kola. At Kola, we distributed ration. We advocated with the labor department to ensure that family, especially during COVID, got some financial help. We've had 30 awareness camps on COVID. We also have worked in the area of education, especially with the school dropouts. We can see that 9 students who had dropped out have been re-enrolled. In fact, we discovered that the government schools in Kola were very good schools. So we ensured that the children were enrolled in school through awareness camps and jatras. With all this goodness created by Kanyathon, we are helping to minimize the divide between the male and female, and the SDG of gender inequality has also been impacted by us. We hope you found our story of sustainability interesting, and we would like to close with some suggestions on how you can create social impact on your campus.
So the suggestion that we have are collaborate with us on Kanyathon and run a chapter in your institution, select 1 or 2 causes and support it with initiatives year on year. And lastly, integrate the initiatives into the curriculum and get all students to participate in planning, organizing, and execution with motivational rewards. Here are the few glimpses of the event that we have conducted over the years. And we would really like to thank QS platform gave us the platform to present ourselves and talk about Kanyathon, which is an initiative taken by our institute. So thank you so much to all the panelists here. Thank you. If there are any questions, ma'am, for us in the YouTube channel, so we are ready to answer a few of them.
Thank you so much for such a valuable presentation. And I hope this will create awareness to empower women across the nation. We would really love to answer some of the audience question, but since we don't have much time, so in case we have any question, we'll forward it to you so that you can directly, reach out to them. Moving on. Moving on, we have a case study presentation on the SDG progress by the Vijayabhumi University. Vijayabhumi University was one of the Pact 2030 Goa declarants. I now invite Mr. Sanjay Padode, who is the president of Vijayabhumi University, to present the institution SDG journey. Over to you, Mr. Padode.
Very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you, Sushmita, and thank you, QS, for inviting me to present this case study. And I would like to first of all applaud the effort of Jagdish School of Management boys and girls who did an excellent job in Kanyathon and taught us many lessons. I think that was the genesis of the idea of Vijayabhumi University. But before I start clocking my time, I would like to make a few statements on what I've heard as part of the panel discussion. So allow me 2 minutes on that. I think the first thing that all educators must realize is that they are very much largely responsible for the issues that have happened to this Mother Earth. Okay, it's our education that has allowed people to be swayed by the vagaries of capitalism and allowed us to go to the extreme of actually stretching Mother Earth to its limit. And that's why we are talking about sustainability. Mother Earth is yet very forgiving. If it wanted, it could have taken us all out in one go. It just demonstrated it through a COVID-19 impact. But the reality is that we have taken the Mother Earth for granted. Let's look at some of the SDGs. So in 2000, there was something called the Millennium Development Goals, which are 8 defined by UN, which became 17 in 2016. So that means we didn't reduce the problems in spite of the warning. We added the problems. We added 9 problems. And everything to that is correlated to first realization by the educators that it is our responsibility to start propagating survival of the human race. Sustainability is not about environment. It is about us as people, whether we'll have oxygen to breathe, whether we'll have water to drink, whether we'll have food to eat, whether we'll be able to produce children, whether we will be able to survive. So it's about survival. I think that should touch us all. We cannot be influenced just by the rankings to get into sustainable development goals. I think this should be an inherent feature of every individual as a good human being. So with all due respect to the panel members, I think you'll missed out one aspect, which is basic civic sense, which lacks in India. I think we got to teach our children to keep the cities clean first, to hold responsibility of being a good citizen. Once we do that, sustainability will be taken care of. With that, I'll just end and start my presentation. So let me get down to sharing what we are doing at Vijayabhumi. And let me tell you, the promoter of Vijayabhumi is Jagdish School of Management. So whatever we are doing at Vijayabhumi is something that we have very much experimented at Jagdish School of Management. And that has become the genesis of whatever I'm going to talk about. So a very quick look at Vijayabhumi University and its campus. Our philosophy is that education is about enablement. It enables society, it enables individual, it enables countries, it enables everything in the world. This is the spirit of Vijayabhumi. I'm not going to talk about this because it's going to consume a lot of time and I've got many slides to show. So I'm just going to script it, but you can go up on our website and have a look at it. And we believe by it, we swear by it. And spirit and values are the core that drives Vijayabhumi University. This is a vision to be the most sought after destination for liberal professional education, which is very simple. And this is our mission. We continue the same mission of Jagdish School of Management, IFM institutions, which is to nurture holistic, socially responsible, and continuously employable professionals, because we believe in this mission. The anchors of the curriculum are discovery, holistic, social responsibility, and professional. This is also part of our mission, so I don't want to talk much about it. So sustainability, social responsibility, self-development are core integrated not only into our spirit, it is also integrated into our curriculum. It is integrated into the design of every student experience that the student experiences on a university, but let it be any intervention. So these are the schools that we have: management, law, design, data science, music, engineering. These are the schools. I'm not going to talk more about that. You can visit the university website and get more. So let's see, what are we doing in the curriculum and pedagogy? Some of that has already been talked about by the students of Jagdish School of Management, but I'll run over this at a rapid pace. So to propagate critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, and personality development, we do something called an outdoor leadership lab, which our students will basically vouch for. It is to let them realize what their strengths and weaknesses are. They go through a psychometric test, they go through mentoring, they go through building of their own individual development plan, which they then basically pursue till the end for their career aspirations. And the result is out there. Placements at JAXOM have been excellent, and placements have not come through the traditional way of companies picking up students. It's always been through engagement, where students have worked for companies in internships and projects and have been absorbed by the companies by themselves. And we have got a lot of testimonials on that from our company, and we are proud of that. The second is the personality enhancement program, which is about wellness, which is about self and the life skills. So it's about lifestyle and life skill. All our students in Vijayabhumi University, Jagdish School of Management are required to go to the gym thrice a week or choose one of a sport or activity so that they start discipline in their life. We do wake them up at 6:30 in the morning. I know they hate it, but it is something that we want to do and engrave into them, because that will create self-discipline, which eventually help them self-manage, which will eventually help them manage others. So that is the core philosophy. These are the key activities that are done, which are listed on the slide. I'm not going to talk about them. They're pretty easy to read and go forward. Then we have the effective execution course, which is already talked about by the Jagdish School of Management Kanyathon team. This essentially, the student council and all activities that the students do are credited within our curriculum. They are graded for everything that they do. We do not believe that there's anything called extracurricular, co-curricular or curricular. We believe everything is curricular. The entire student experience in the university should be credited and awarded to the students if they have performed, because that really brings out the strengths and weaknesses of the students out into their resume, helps them to, gives them the opportunities to actually perform, outperform, and discover their own strengths and weaknesses and choose their careers as per their strengths and weaknesses and as per their passions. So that's what the effective execution is all about. Then we have research incubation, which basically is for students to learn the how to be scholars. Research projects can be disciplinary, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary, which we all talked about. 3 areas of focus: framing problem, literature survey, collating, cleaning, and analyzing data, developing models and hypotheses, publishing in index journals. You won't believe it, but our students are publishing Scopus index journals by themselves, and they're doing a good job. We have already hit a B category journal, and we are very confident that soon our students will be able to hit a A category journal, but this doesn't come without the mentoring of a faculty who really work hard behind the students' work. So having set aside how critical thinking, problem solving, and decision making and personality enhancement can be done through curriculum interventions, and for all these interventions, we have got comments, we have got all kinds of awards in ASCSB conferences, EFMD conferences, where they have been commented upon as well. They have been very, very well commented upon even by the peer review teams that have reviewed us. We have got re-accredited the second time. Both our campuses are accredited by ASCSB now. Though the university is 3 years old, we are ASCSB accredited. So let me go forward. Driving sustainability through curricular activities is the next thing. I think the students have already spoken about the social immersion program, and this is a must. It's a 4-credit course for everybody. Even in the undergraduate, all students have to do it. 10-day immersion in a village or in a marginalized environment, where they basically go interview people, find out, they basically sensitize themselves to the have-nots of the world and figure out yet there is happiness in their living and what can they do to solve the problem. So it's a very, very positive moment of immersing into that environment, living in that environment the way others live. So they give away their comfort for those 10 days and go in raw into that environment. That definitely fires up certain hormones in their bodies and which creates certain thoughts, which then touches their heart somewhere, and they choose a problem that is close to them, aligned to one of the 17 SDGs. Then they work with an NGO to solve the problem using a techno-economic viable tool, which is the report which is finally produced. And let me tell you, there are many case studies which get published. We have a publication that we produce every year of the top 25 projects that we do. And this is available, which can be downloaded from the website of the Jagdish School of Management. There are some which have been implemented by municipal corporation. There are some which has been implemented by forest department. So there is substantial impact, demonstrable impact. It is not about just publishing. It is about making things happen. Kanyathon, I'm not going to take time. That's already been presented. Very, very integral part of Vijayabhumi. Very, very integral part of JAXOM. It's into our DNA. Save a girl child. One of the key reasons why is because we feel that women created the world, women can transform the world. So if we save them, things can happen. And that's our core philosophy. We believe in it, we work towards it, we are impacting on it. Finally, we created a new campus. So we had to practice what we were preaching. So these are some of the things that we did for making a sustainable campus. So we did something called, we created sustainable buildings. First of all, we hired an architect who actually believed in sustainability. We reduce use of cement. So we do not have plaster, we do not have outdoor paint because that reduces paint chemicals, that reduces use of cement, which is all harmful to our environment. Instead of in grounds where people use artificial turf, we are using only natural turf because they protect, they ensure there are no injuries, and they are absolutely sustainable because they're created by Mother Earth. Only thing, it does cost a little bit to maintain, but I think it's worth it because you're saving Earth by expending that little extra. During construction, not a single tree was cut, though we built the entire campus in a jungle, in a place which is 90 kilometers away from Mumbai and 90 kilometers away from Pune, surrounded 270 degrees by hills. We didn't cut a single tree. We have 2 classrooms where a tree goes through the classroom, but we didn't cut it. Biodiversity and contours. We didn't change the contours of the land. We ensured that the buildings were put onto the contours of the land. We did not want to impact the biodiversity of the region. Imagine building a campus in a UNESCO declared eco-sensitive zone. That means getting that many clarifications and clearances and complying with all the clearances to make it eco-sensitive. We followed all to the T. Water harvesting, we are developing a 1-acre man-made lake within the campus to store 15 million liters of water. There are 2 large open wells harvesting water from a nearby stream to meet the daily water requirements and recharge the groundwater. There's double plumbing in all the systems so that we are recycling water for flushing and gardening and stuff. Energy conservation, we have a 100 kilowatt solar plant which is generating energy on the campus. So we are generating while consuming. We have designed the campus in such a way so that it creates a wind tunnel effect. So ventilation and cooling is through natural sources. We are using jalis in our classrooms, in our hostels to permit light to come in. So again, we are trying to conserve energy. Let me tell you, jali is a very old tradition from Rajasthan, coming back from many years in the past. It's just been adopted here. We are using reed-based STP. We are not using power-based STP. Reed-based STP runs on plants that clean the water. It's a very tested technology, but it requires a lot of maintenance. So again, we expend energy, we get our students involved in doing all this so that they learn, they become sensitive, they become socially responsible, being one of the part in our mission. And they are fully actively involved in this. So it's reed-based technology. Students are a good source. If you motivate them, if you energize them, you don't have to expend much and they will do the work for you. And by learning. Environment conservation, we have a vice president position inside a student council holding the post of sustainability. His or her job is to make the campus plastic free. Second, to ensure that students are not keeping ACs on, students are not keeping fans on, not keeping lights on, to conserve energy. And they're doing a fantastic job. In our campus, there are no fossil fuels vehicles allowed. It's only EV vehicles. We use golf carts to transport people. Students use bikes, skateboards, anything which is human powered. We are monitoring the air quality through an AQI monitor, and that's available on our website. If you go, it demonstrates, and will probably tempt you to visit our campus because our air quality is even cleaner than the best of the cities in the world. Thank you. So I hope I have maintained my time, Sushmita. I went like a bullet. I told you it's 23 slides in 10 minutes was a tough job, and I don't know how much time I took. Thank you very much. If there are questions, I would love to answer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjay Parode, for the interesting presentation and for such initiatives taken by Vijay Bhumi University in transforming into a sustainable campus. As the Secretariat for Pact 2030, QS iGauge will continue to engage with more and more institutions to facilitate actions on SDGs. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome our chief guest for the evening, Mr. Vijay K. Nambiar, who's the former diplomat who had served as the special advisor on Myanmar to UN Secretary General. He was also the Chief of Staff of United Nations between 2007 and 2012. Mr. Nambiar previously served as Deputy National Security Advisor to the Government of India and head of the National Security Council Secretariat. He was also India's permanent representative to the United Nations in New York between 2002 and 2004. Mr. Nambiar was also Ambassador of India in Pakistan, China, Malaysia, and Afghanistan. It is an honor to have you with us today, sir. I now welcome you to address the audience.
Thank you, QSI Gage. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you today in this very insightful virtual session on the occasion of the launching of the SDG Handbook for Indian Higher Education. Education and literacy play a central role in determining the overall socio-economic standing of a country. To meet the changing dynamics of India's present-day challenges in providing quality education, innovation, and research, our new education policy, national education policy, aims to make India a knowledge hub by equipping its citizens with skill development and upgradation, including ICT and vocational training. Given the fact that India has a young population with an average age of 29 years, if the demographic dividend is to be harnessed properly, there must be basic improvements in addressing other SDG targets too, such as in health, protecting our environment, building resilience, and continuously enhancing skill development and gender empowerment, most importantly, gender empowerment across the country. I'm not an expert or someone qualified to discuss the technical issues confronting India in the field of higher education. Of course, we are all aware of the major focus of the SDG 4, which is to ensure quality, access, equity, and inclusion. Mr. Sahota in his statement stressed outreach, action, and involvement by higher education institutions in India. The subsequent panel discussion on academic leadership and capacity building similarly brought out valuable insights and suggestions on cross-disciplinary approaches, curriculum integration, partnerships, etc., to cover the various SDG priorities. I entirely agree with the emphasis on basic civic sense, which was underlined just now by Mr. Sanjay Padode. Now, the Higher Education Sustainability Initiative Plus 10 Global Forum that has been taking place in the sidelines of the high-level political forum on sustainable development, the HLPF, this week in New York, has recalled the 10th anniversary of its launch at the 2012 Rio Plus 20 conference. The forum has helped to deepen our understanding of the challenges and opportunities before us in building back better from the COVID-19, as well as in the context of the HLPF review of goals 5, 14, 15, and 17. This, I'm sure, will help pave the way for the Transforming Education Summit to be held later in September this year at the UN headquarters. The importance of inter-university cooperation and cross-border research in facilitating academic mobility cannot be emphasized enough. We need to recognize the rights of individuals to have their higher qualifications evaluated in a fair, transparent, and non-discriminatory manner across regions. Now, since the Tokyo Convention came into force in February 2018, several guidelines have been developed to evolve a holistic approach to measure the internationalization of higher education. Side by side, special efforts should be made for the recognition of post-secondary school diplomas, certificates, and standardized tests to access higher education, for the recognition of online and blended learning, and for the development and operation of micro-credentials in the years to come. In India, there is a critical need to accelerate the contributions and leadership of academic institutions for realizing the SDGs. This necessitates a platform for academic involvements from local to national and thereon to the international level. Now, PACT 2030 obviously is such a forum. At Goa in March this year, of course, PACT 20 brought together leaders, heads of institutions, and policymakers to craft a long-term vision that will both entrench the much needed values as well as adapt to the fast moving developments and changes across the world. This needs to be sustained in the future by what the handbook describes as, quote, leveraging cutting edge knowledge and borderless engagement, unquote. I'm convinced that the handbook being released today is a major effort in this direction. I hope it will contribute to putting India on the world map of education and indeed on the world map of competence in attaining and addressing all the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nambia, for that insightful address. We now have a small snippet from the packed 2030 conclave before we proceed with the major highlight of the event. It's time for the event highlight for which we all have gathered here today. And I request Mr. Nambia to launch the much awaited SDG Handbook.
I have great pleasure in launching this much awaited SDG Handbook.
The SDG Handbook for Indian Higher Education is customized to work as a ready reckoner to Indian HEIs towards the planning and implementation of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals in their campuses and society at large. The handbook unravels the current global scenario on what is happening at the SDG front, the facts and figures from India on each of the 17 SDGs, and lists out several recommendations to Indian HEIs to scale up their involvement. The audience can now download the SDG book through the QR code displayed on the screen, or alternatively, they can visit www.pact2030.org to download the SDG Handbook. With this, I invite Mr. Ravin Nair, COO of QS iGauge, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you all indeed for making your presence today. It's been a very riveting intellectual engagement and fruitful exchange of thoughts. And I take this opportunity to congratulate each one of you for the vigor and enthusiasm with which you all are taking the SDG initiatives forward to achieve these milestones. As living laboratories of transformation and innovation, the academic engagement, leadership, commitment, partnership, and exemplar models are crucial to empower the next generations to advance SDG progress and foster a resilient and equitable future. On behalf of the entire QS iGauge team, I convey my gratitude to Mr. Vijay Nambia, former Special Advisor to the UN Secretary General, for accepting our invitation to grace the occasion and sharing his views. Thank you so much, sir. We feel so proud and privileged and honored to have you with us today. Also, heartfelt thanks to Sri Sarabjit Singh Sahota, Disaster Risk Reduction Specialist, UNICEF India, for delivering an insightful keynote address. Thank you so much, Mr. Sahota. I'm sure today's panel discussion has certainly helped many of us develop critical thinking with regards to the geopolitical, socio-economic, and climate change issues that are affecting every country on every continent. So thanks a lot to Dr. Geeta Thakur, Dr. Supriya Patel, Dr. Lakshmi Priya, Dr. Krishnendu Sarkar, Dr. Deepak Nalaswamy for your valuable thoughts. There is indeed a lot of learning from these discussions. Thank you so much. We've also witnessed one-of-a-kind initiative by the students of Jagdish Seth School of Management, the Kanyathon initiative to champion the cause of women empowerment. Congratulations to students for their wonderful presentation. Mr. Sanjay Parode, congratulations to you and Vijayabhumi University for the progress you have made and the dedicated efforts towards achieving sustainable goals in your institution. Thank you, Mr. Parode, for the participation. Last but not the least, a big thank you to the QS iGauge team that has been working relentlessly for the last few weeks to make this event a success. Thank you, team, everyone, for all the hard work. I wish you all continued success in this journey and look forward to learning about the outcomes of this event. Once again, my sincere gratitude to all the participants who have joined from across the country, and wish you all a great weekend ahead. Thank you so much. Over to you, Suchita.
So before we conclude, I thank all our speakers and presenters for sharing their valuable insights with us today. And a sincere thanks to all our audience for joining us. Those joining us on YouTube, do subscribe to our channel, QS iGauge, to get more updates on our upcoming events. Thank you and have a great evening.